Manager accuses woman of using stolen card. But when she reveals who she is, he trembles. Jennifer Parker was pushing her wheelchair through the aisles of the department store at Hudson Yards Mall in New York City with a few clothing items on her lap. She had decided to refresh her professional wardrobe after years of wearing only basic clothes. What should have been a simple afternoon of shopping was about to turn into the most unexpected encounter of her life. When she reached the checkout, she handed her golden premium credit card to the clerk, who swiped the card normally. It was then that Michael Thompson, the store manager, quickly approached and interrupted the transaction with a brusque gesture. "Stop that right now," he said to the checkout clerk, taking the card from her hands. "This card can't possibly be hers." Jennifer felt the blood rush to her face. Other customers began to look in their direction, whispering among themselves. The situation was quickly becoming embarrassing. "Excuse me, what seems to be the problem?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm despite her growing irritation. Michael examined the card with suspicion, turning it over and over as if looking for some evidence of forgery. "Listen here, miss. This is a premium black card from the First National Reserve. Do you have any idea how much a person needs to earn per month to be eligible for a card like this?" The checkout clerk, a young woman named Ashley, seemed extremely uncomfortable with the situation. She looked alternately at the manager and at Jennifer, clearly unsure of how to proceed. "Mr. Thompson, perhaps it would be best if we verified this with the bank," Ashley suggested quietly. "We don't need to verify anything," replied Michael, raising his voice. "It's obvious this card isn't hers. A person—" He paused, looking at the wheelchair. "In your condition wouldn't have access to a premium card like this." The silence that followed was tense. Jennifer felt all the words she wanted to shout get stuck in her throat. The humiliation was almost physical, like a weight on her chest that made it hard to breathe. "My condition?" she repeated slowly, each word loaded with controlled anger. "Are you accusing me of theft based on the fact that I use a wheelchair?" Michael crossed his arms, assuming a defensive posture. He had started this situation and now needed to see it through, even though deep down he knew he was on dangerous ground. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just being cautious. Many cards get cloned these days, and it's my responsibility to protect this store and its customers." Jennifer took a deep breath. 20 years of experience dealing with prejudice had taught her that losing her cool would only make things worse. But this time was different. This time she had the power to do something about it. "Very well, Mr. Thompson. Are you absolutely sure you want to go down this path?" "I'm absolutely sure. If you cannot prove this card is yours, I will have to ask you to leave the store and consider calling security." It was at this moment that Jennifer decided the time for truth had come. She opened her purse and took out a document folder, looking for a specific paper. When she found it, she held it out to Michael. "Would you please read this document out loud?" Michael took the paper reluctantly. His eyes quickly scanned the first few lines, and his expression began to change. The blood seemed to drain from his face as he read. I don't understand," he stammered. "Read it out loud," insisted Jennifer, her voice now carrying an authority that wasn't there before. Michael cleared his throat nervously before beginning to read. "Internal memo. The Regional Board of Styleworks Stores is pleased to announce the appointment of Jennifer Parker as the new Regional Director of Operations, a position she officially assumed last Monday. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." The silence that followed was deafening. All the nearby employees had stopped working and were staring intently at the scene unfolding before them. Michael held the document with trembling hands, rereading the words as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "You are the new regional director?" he asked, his voice reduced to a whisper. "Yes, Mr. Michael Thompson. And coincidentally, this is my first official visit to one of the stores under my responsibility. What an interesting first impression I'm getting of how customers are treated here." Michael felt his legs go weak. In 15 years working in retail, he had never gotten himself into such a compromising situation. But there was something else bothering him at that moment. When Jennifer had said her full name, something had clicked in his memory, a distant and painful memory that he had tried to bury years ago. "Excuse me, but did you say Jennifer Parker?" he asked, his voice laden with an emotion he couldn't quite identify. "Yes, why?" Michael ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. That name echoed in his mind, mixed with memories of nighttime conversations with his mother, unshed tears, and a guilt he had carried for over 10 years. Were you by any chance a patient at Mercy General Hospital?" Jennifer felt a shiver run down her spine. Mercy General Hospital was where she had spent months after the accident that left her paraplegic. It had been an extremely difficult period of her life, but also where she had met people who deeply marked her journey. "Yes, I was. But how do you know that?" Michael closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering courage for what he was about to say. My mother was a nurse there. She always spoke of a special patient, a young woman who had suffered an accident. Jennifer Parker, the one who had so much potential, who studied business and dreamed of working with people." Jennifer's world seemed to stop. All these years she had wondered what had happened to Dorothy Thompson, the nurse who had been her light during the darkest months of her recovery. Dorothy had disappeared from the hospital overnight without saying goodbye, leaving only a note saying she had to leave. "Dorothy Thompson is your mother?" asked Jennifer, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes." "Do you remember her?" "Do I remember her?" Jennifer felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Your mother saved my life. Not physically, but emotionally. When I wanted to give up on everything, she would spend hours talking with me, helping me believe that I still had a future ahead of me." Michael felt a lump in his throat. For years, his mother had carried enormous guilt for abandoning Jennifer when she needed her most. What he didn't know was how to tell her that he had finally found the person she could never forget. "Where is she now?" asked Jennifer. "I always wanted to thank her for everything she did." Michael's expression became somber. He looked at the floor, clearly struggling with difficult emotions. She is sick. Very sick. And that's why He hesitated, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. "That's why I really need this job." Jennifer realized there was more to the story. Michael's overreaction to your card, the extreme nervousness upon discovering who you were, the desperate mention of needing the job. There were missing pieces to that puzzle. "Michael, why don't you tell me the whole story? Let's find a more private place to talk." They headed to the store's administrative office, a small space in the back where Michael handled the daily management. Jennifer noticed the room was impeccably organized, but there were signs of stress everywhere. Accumulated coffee cups, papers with urgent notes, medicine on the desk. "My mother has been in the hospital for 3 months, Michael began, his voice almost a whisper. "What started as simple pneumonia turned into something much more serious. The doctors discovered she has a rare autoimmune disease. The treatment is extremely expensive, and not everything is covered by the insurance plan." Jennifer listened in silence, her heart tightening as she imagined Dorothy, always so strong and dedicated, now fighting a serious illness. "That's why you got so nervous about my card," she said, beginning to understand. "You couldn't afford to make any mistake that could cost you your job." "Exactly. And when I saw that premium card, I know it's no excuse, but I thought it was better to err on the side of caution than to let something suspicious slide. I never imagined that you were the patient your mother could never forget." Michael nodded, discreetly wiping his eyes. "Every night, when she was still at home, she talked about you. She said she had failed the one person who truly needed her, that she had abandoned you when she should have stayed." Jennifer felt her heart break. All these years, she had wondered why Dorothy had left so abruptly. She had even thought that maybe it was something she herself had done or said. "Michael, your mother didn't abandon me. She was fired, wasn't she?" The question hit Michael like a punch. His eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know?" "Because I was there. I saw when the nursing supervisor argued with her because she refused to follow a protocol she considered harmful to me. She defended my rights when no one else would." Michael sank into the chair behind the desk. For years, his mother had carried the guilt of having abandoned Jennifer, when in reality she had sacrificed her own career to protect her. "She never told me that," he murmured. "She only said she could no longer work at the hospital and that she had let a patient down." She was the bravest person I knew in that hospital, and now I need to see her. Where is she hospitalized?" Michael hesitated. Telling Jennifer about his mother's current condition meant exposing a situation he had been trying to handle alone for months. Mount Sinai Medical Center, on the Upper East Side. But she isn't always conscious. The medication leaves her confused most of the time. And when she is lucid, she only talks about how much she regrets leaving you. Jennifer felt a growing urgency to see Dorothy. After so many years wondering about the whereabouts of the woman who had been her salvation, discovering that she was sick and carrying unnecessary guilt was almost unbearable. "I'm going to see her today. Can you come with me?" "I need to stay at the store until closing. But you can go, of course. She's in room 308. Jennifer was about to get up when she noticed something strange. Michael had become even more tense when mentioning he needed to stay at the store. There was something in the way he averted his eyes that suggested he wasn't telling the whole truth. "Michael, is something happening here at the store that I should know about?" The question caught him off guard. For a moment, he considered lying, but looking into Jennifer's eyes, he saw the same determination his mother always described when talking about her former patient. "I made some mistakes," he finally admitted. "Nothing serious, but I need to fix a few things before someone finds out." Jennifer had managed stores long enough to know when an employee was hiding something serious, but she also knew that sometimes people did desperate things when under extreme pressure. What kind of mistakes? Michael took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived, and perhaps it was better to tell everything to someone who could help him instead of trying to handle it alone. "I took money from the register," he said quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. "But not for me. To pay for my mother's medicine. I always put it back the following week when I got my paycheck, but this month I couldn't put it all back." The silence that followed was heavy. Jennifer processed the information, understanding the gravity of the situation, but also the moral complexity involved. "How much is still missing?" $2,000, murmured Michael. "I know it doesn't seem like much, but with my salary and the hospital bills, I couldn't save up." Jennifer did some quick mental math. $2,000 wasn't a gigantic amount in the context of a store like that, but it represented the difference between Michael having a job and ending up being prosecuted for embezzlement. "Do the other employees know?" "Some suspect, but no one has said anything. They know about my mother's situation and I think they feel sorry for me." At that moment, Jennifer made a decision that would change the course of the entire situation. She opened her purse and took out a checkbook. "What is the exact amount missing from the register?" "Miss Jennifer, please. I can't accept. I'm not offering charity, Michael. I'm investing in the son of the woman who saved my life. Consider it an interest-free loan." Michael watched Jennifer fill out the check with trembling hands. After years of struggling alone, of sleepless nights worrying about his mother and his job, someone was finally offering a light at the end of the tunnel. "How can I thank you?" "By taking me to see your mother now. The store can be left with Ashley for a few hours, can't it?" Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. An hour later, Jennifer and Michael were at Mount Sinai Medical Center. The hospital environment brought back a flood of memories for Jennifer, some difficult, others marked by the kindness of professionals like Dorothy. As they walked through the corridors, Michael shared more details about his mother's condition. "Some days she's lucid and we talk normally. Other days, the medication makes her confused and she talks about things from the past as if they were happening now. But even on the confused days, she always mentions you." They stopped in front of room 308. Through the small window in the door, Jennifer could see a woman with graying hair lying in the bed, much more fragile than the strong, determined nurse she had met years before. "Is she awake?" asked Jennifer. "It seems so, but I don't know if she'll recognize me today." When they entered the room, Dorothy slowly turned her head toward them. Her eyes, though tired, still held the spark of intelligence Jennifer remembered. "Michael," she said in a weak voice, "I'm so glad you came. I was dreaming about that patient, that special girl I left at the hospital." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. Even in her weakened state, Dorothy still carried that guilt. "Mom," Michael said softly, "I brought a visitor for you." Dorothy looked toward Jennifer, and for a moment her eyes seemed unable to focus. But then, gradually, an expression of recognition began to form on her face. "Jennifer," she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. "My dear, is that you?" "Yes, Mrs. Thompson, I'm here." Dorothy began to cry, tears streaming freely down her face. "Forgive me, my child. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I've never been able to forgive myself for that." Jennifer moved closer to the bed and took Dorothy's fragile hand in hers. "You didn't abandon me. You saved me. You risked your job to defend me. And because of you, I never gave up. Everything I am today, I owe to you. But I left without saying goodbye. Because you were fired for defending me, I know that. And all these years, the strength you gave me is what allowed me to get to where I am." Dorothy looked at Jennifer as if she were seeing a miracle. The guilt she had carried for so long was finally beginning to dissipate. "You became a strong woman, didn't you? You managed to achieve your dreams." "I did. I'm a regional director for a major retail chain. I have a team of over 300 people working with me. And it all started with the confidence you placed in me." The moment was interrupted by a nurse entering to check Dorothy's vital signs. Jennifer took the opportunity to speak with Michael in the hallway. "How is her treatment going?" "It's complicated. It's an experimental treatment, very expensive. The insurance only covers part of the cost. That's why I did that at the store." "And you don't have other relatives who can help?" Michael shook his head. "It's just the two of us. My father left us when I was 10 and my mother never remarried. She dedicated her whole life to me and her work." Jennifer was beginning to understand the extent of the sacrifice Dorothy had made throughout her life, first losing her job for defending a patient, then raising her son alone, and now fighting a serious illness without enough resources. "Michael, I want to help more, not just with the money from the store, but with your mother's treatment." "Miss Parker, I can't accept that. What you've already done is too much. It's not charity, it's gratitude. Your mother invested in me when I had nothing. Now it's my turn to repay the favor." When they returned to the room, they found Dorothy more alert, sitting up in bed with the nurse's help. "Jennifer," she said, "tell me about your life all these years. I want to know everything." For the next hour, Jennifer shared her journey since being discharged from the hospital. She talked about the difficult early years, adapting to the wheelchair, the studies she resumed, her first job, the promotions, the challenges she overcame. "Whenever I doubted myself," she said, "I remembered your words. You said I was stronger than I thought, and that my wheelchair was just a detail in my story, not the whole story." Dorothy smiled through her tears. "I did say that, and I was right. You were. And now I want you to know that you don't have to worry about anything anymore. I'll make sure you get the best treatment possible." "Jennifer, my dear, I can't accept—" "Of course you can. It's the same thing you did for me at the hospital. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." At that moment, Michael realized he was witnessing something much bigger than a reunion. He was seeing the closing of a circle, where a debt of gratitude could finally be repaid. But the story was far from over. When they returned to the store in the late afternoon, they found a situation that would complicate everything again. Ashley, the cashier, was waiting for them with a worried expression. "Mr. Thompson, I need to speak with you urgently." "What happened, Ashley?" "Mr. Richard Nelson was here. He said he was conducting a surprise audit and asked to see the cash reports for the last 3 months. Michael's blood ran cold. Richard Nelson was the internal auditor for the chain, known for his strictness and zero tolerance for irregularities. If he was investigating the cash reports, there was a high chance he would discover the discrepancies Michael had caused." "Did he say anything specific?" asked Jennifer. "He said he had received an anonymous tip about possible irregularities at this store. He's coming back tomorrow morning to do a full analysis." Michael felt dizzy. Even with the money Jennifer had lent him to cover the shortfall, there was still the history of the previous withdrawals that could be uncovered in a detailed audit. "Who could have made the tip?" asked Jennifer. "I have a suspicion," said Ashley, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. "Mr. Robert, who was transferred from our store last month, He never liked Mr. Michael and was very angry when he was transferred. Jennifer remembered Robert Williams from the reports she had read about the stores under her responsibility. He had been transferred after several complaints of inappropriate behavior with female employees. "What exactly did he do to get transferred?" she asked. Michael and Ashley exchanged uncomfortable looks. "He harassed the employees," Michael said finally, "especially the younger ones. I gave him several warnings and finally reported the case to the Human Resources Department." "And now he wants revenge," added Ashley. "I'm sure he's the one who made the tip." Jennifer processed the information quickly. The situation was more complex than she had imagined. Robert wasn't just trying to hurt Michael because of the transfer. He probably knew about the cash withdrawals and was using that information as a weapon. "Michael, I need you to tell me exactly what happened with Robert. Every detail." For the next half hour, Michael recounted the months of Robert's inappropriate behavior, the complaints from employees who didn't feel safe reporting it directly, and finally his decision to take action. "I knew it could cause problems for me," he said. "Robert always threatened me, saying he would make me pay for interfering in his life, but I couldn't let those young women continue to suffer." Jennifer was starting to get a clearer picture of who Michael really was. A man who, even under extreme financial pressure, had risked his own position to protect his employees. "Ashley, do the other employees who were harassed still work here?" "Yes, Mum. Emma and Olivia. They were very relieved when Robert was transferred, but they never wanted to file a formal complaint because they were afraid of losing their jobs." "And do you think they would be willing to tell the truth about what happened if it became necessary?" "I think so, especially if they knew Michael is in trouble for having defended them." Jennifer was formulating a plan. If Robert was trying to destroy Michael for doing the right thing, she wouldn't let that happen. But first, she needed to fully understand the store's financial situation. "Michael, show me all the cash reports from the last 6 months. I want to see exactly what Richard will find tomorrow." They spent the next 2 hours meticulously reviewing all the reports. Jennifer, with her auditing experience, could identify exactly where the problematic discrepancies were. "Here," she said, pointing to an entry in July. "You withdrew $500 on this day. Can you remember why?" "That was when my mother had her first emergency hospitalization. I needed to pay for the taxi to the hospital and I didn't have any money. And here in August, 800 reais. Medications that the insurance didn't cover. Every withdrawal had a story behind it, a medical or family emergency that had forced Michael to make difficult decisions. Jennifer saw a clear pattern, a desperate man doing what he could to care for his sick mother. "Michael, I have a proposal, but I need you to trust me completely." "I already do, Ms. Jennifer. You've done more for me in one day than anyone else has in years." "Good. Tomorrow, when Richard arrives, we will be here together. We won't hide anything. We will tell the whole truth. About your mother, about Robert, about everything. But that will cost me my job. Perhaps, or perhaps it will change everything. You told me you always put the money back, right? That it was never really theft, just unauthorized borrowing." "Exactly. I always paid everything back the following week." "Then let's work with that, and we'll use the Robert situation to show what kind of person you really are." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Richard Nelson arrived promptly at 9 o'clock. He was a short, meticulous man, known for uncovering irregularities that other auditors missed. He carried a briefcase full of documents and an expression that left no doubt about his intentions. "Mr. Michael," he said without preamble, "I have received a complaint about irregularities in this store's cash controls. I will need to see all the reports from the last 6 months and interview employees." "Of course, Mr. Richard. But first I would like to introduce our new regional director, Jennifer Parker. She is overseeing the audit." Richard seemed surprised to see Jennifer, but quickly recomposed his professional expression. "Director, I didn't know you would be personally overseeing this audit." "It's my first week in the position, Mr. Richard. I am visiting all the stores to better understand the operations." For the next 3 hours, Richard meticulously examined every report, every entry, every discrepancy. Jennifer and Michael remained present, answering all questions with complete transparency. Finally, Richard gathered all the papers and sat down to make his final notes. "Mr. Michael, I have found several irregularities in the cash controls, unauthorized withdrawals on different dates, totaling approximately 3,000 Rs over the last 6 months. Yes, sir, I can explain each one of them." "I'm listening." Michael told the whole story: his mother's illness, the medical emergencies, the desperate need for money for medications and transport. He explained how he had always replaced the money the following week, and how the only amount he hadn't yet managed to replace had already been deposited back into the store's account. "I understand your personal situation," said Richard, "but this does not justify the misappropriation of company funds. I will have to recommend your immediate dismissal and possibly criminal charges." It was then that Jennifer intervened. "Mr. Richard, I would like to add some information to your report." She told him about the Robert situation, about the harassment of the female employees, and about how Michael had risked his position to protect them. She also explained her own connection to Michael's family and the quality of his work as a manager. "Furthermore," she added, "I would like to propose an alternative solution. Instead of dismissal, what if we implemented an employee assistance program for staff in family emergency situations?" Richard seemed skeptical. "What kind of program?" "An emergency fund that employees in critical situations could access through interest-free loans with flexible repayment terms. Michael could coordinate this program, using his personal experience to help others going through similar situations." "And who would finance this fund?" "I have some ideas about that. But first, I need to hear from the employees about what really happened with Robert." Jennifer called Emma and Olivia, the 2 employees who had been harassed by Robert. Initially reluctant, they gradually felt comfortable enough to share their experiences. "Robert would always make comments about our appearance," said Emma. "He would ask us out even after we said no. Once he followed me to the parking lot." "With me it was worse," added Olivia. "He made it clear that my performance review would depend on me being more friendly with him." "And when you reported this to Michael, what did he do?" "Michael listened to us, documented everything, and said he would take action," replied Emma. 2 weeks later, Robert was transferred. Richard listened to everything in silence, taking notes. It was clear the situation was more complex than simple embezzlement. "Mr. Richard," said Jennifer, "Michael made mistakes, but they were the mistakes of a desperate man trying to care for his sick mother. At the same time, he showed moral integrity by protecting his employees from sexual harassment. What kind of message will we send if we punish someone who did the right thing?" Richard closed his briefcase and was silent for a few minutes, clearly weighing his options. "Director, your proposal for the assistance program is interesting, but I need more details. And there's still the question of the precedent this would set. What if I personally take responsibility for the program? As regional director, I have the autonomy to implement pilot projects. If it works here, we can expand it to other stores. And what about Mr. Michael's specific situation? I propose a 15-day suspension without pay, during which he will help develop the guidelines for the assistance program. After that period, he returns to work with a formal warning in his file." Richard considered the proposal. It was a creative solution that punished the infraction but recognized the mitigating circumstances. "Very well. So I will accept your proposal, but on one condition. I want a monthly report on the program's operation, and if there is any other irregularity, Michael will be fired immediately." When Richard left, a heavy silence fell over the store. Michael still couldn't quite believe he had kept his job. "Why did you do this for me?" he asked. "Because your mother taught me that sometimes doing the right thing comes at a cost, but it's still worth it. And because I saw today that you learned that lesson too. But the situation wasn't completely resolved yet. That same afternoon, Robert Williams showed up at the store, clearly surprised to find Michael still working. "I thought you would have been fired by now," he said with a malicious smile. "I'm still here, Robert, and you shouldn't be." "I came to get some things I forgot in the office." Jennifer, who was watching the scene from a distance, approached. "Mr. Robert, I imagine you are the one who reported the irregularities at this store." Robert looked at her suspiciously. "And who would you be?" "Jennifer Parker, the new regional director, and I would very much like to talk to you about your time working here." Robert's expression changed instantly. He realized he was in dangerous territory. "I have nothing to talk about." "Oh, but I do. For example, I'd like to better understand the sexual harassment allegations against you." "Those are lies. These employees made up these stories because they didn't like me. All of them, lying about the same thing. What an interesting coincidence." Michael looked around nervously, noticing that other employees had stopped working and were paying attention to the conversation. "Listen, I didn't do anything wrong, and if Richard was stealing money from the company, someone had to report it." "Interesting that you know about the money," said Jennifer. "How exactly did you find out about that?" Michael realized he had incriminated himself. I suspected. I saw him getting nervous whenever someone handled the cash register. Or maybe you were watching because you were looking for something to use against him after you were transferred for harassment." The tension in the air was palpable. Michael was clearly uncomfortable but tried to maintain his defiant posture. "You can't prove anything." "Actually," said Jennifer, taking a recorder from her pocket, "I can. I just recorded you admitting that you reported Richard out of revenge, not out of genuine concern for the company." Michael paled. "You can't use that." "I can, and I will. Consider this a formal warning that any future attempt to harm employees of this store will be treated as harassment and persecution." Michael quickly left the store, muttering threats that no one took seriously. His attempt to destroy Richard had backfired. In the weeks that followed, the Employee Assistance Program began to take shape. Jennifer worked with Richard to develop clear guidelines, eligibility criteria, and processes for approving emergency loans. The first beneficiary was Olivia, who needed money to take her daughter to the doctor. The $300 loan was approved in one day, without excessive bureaucracy. "It's amazing," she told Richard. "I didn't have to go through the humiliation of borrowing from relatives or running up credit card debt." The program quickly gained popularity among employees who felt safer knowing they had a support network in case of an emergency. But the real test came when Richard's mother had a serious relapse and needed emergency surgery not covered by her health insurance. This time, instead of taking money from the cash register, he was able to use the official program to get a $5,000 loan. "Now I know I'll never feel as desperate as I did before," he told Jennifer. "Having this security changes everything." Dorothy recovered well from the surgery, and when she was discharged from the hospital, she made a point of visiting the store to thank Jennifer in person. "My dear," she said, holding Jennifer's hands, "you turned a terrible situation into something beautiful. You not only saved my son, but created something that will help many other families." "I just learned from the best, Mrs. Dorothy." 3 months later, the program had been expanded to 5 other stores in the chain. The results were impressive: less employee turnover, higher job satisfaction, and surprisingly, higher productivity. During a meeting with the regional board, Jennifer presented the results of the pilot program. "The numbers speak for themselves," she said. "The stores with the assistance program have 40% less turnover and 15% higher productivity than the chain's average." "How do you explain that?" asked one of the directors. "Simple. Employees who feel supported work better. They aren't distracted by personal financial problems and develop greater loyalty to the company." The board decided to expand the program to the entire chain, appointing Richard as the regional coordinator. It was a significant promotion that recognized not only his personal experience, but his ability to turn difficulties into solutions. On the day of the official launch of the expanded program, a ceremony was organized at the hotel near the mall. Employees from all participating stores were invited, along with their families. Jennifer was asked to give a speech, but before she began, she called Dorothy to the stage. "This woman taught me that doing the right thing sometimes comes at a cost," said Jennifer. "She lost her job for defending me when I was young and vulnerable. But thanks to her example, I learned that it's worth fighting for the right people." Dorothy, still fragile but smiling, held the microphone with trembling hands. "When I was a nurse, I always believed that caring for people went beyond the responsibilities of the job. Today I see that my daughter of the heart She looked at Jennifer, took that lesson and multiplied it. This program is going to help hundreds of families. The audience rose in applause. There were few people who weren't emotional at that moment. Michael was also called to the stage to speak about his experience. "A year ago, I was desperate," he began. "My mother was sick. I had no money for the treatment and I was doing things I knew were wrong. I thought my life was over. But sometimes, when all seems lost, someone appears who believes in you and offers a second chance." He looked at Jennifer. "Mrs. Jennifer not only saved me but turned my mistake into an opportunity to help others. Today, every time I approve a loan for a colleague in need, I remember how I felt when someone did that for me." After the ceremony, as people were mingling, Jennifer found a moment to speak alone with Michael and Dorothy. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Dorothy?" "Better every day. The doctors say the new treatment is working very well, and knowing that my son is happy at work gives me more energy to recover." "And you, Michael? How is the new position?" "Challenging, but rewarding. Every week I get calls from employees telling me how the program has helped them. One woman told me she was able to pay for her son's dental treatment. Another managed to pay off her back rent. They're small things, but they make a huge difference in people's lives." Jennifer smiled. Seeing the positive impact that an initially negative situation had generated filled her with satisfaction. "Michael, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Have you ever thought about having your own family? Getting married, having children?" Michael looked at his mother, who smiled encouragingly. "Honestly, in the last few years I was so focused on taking care of my mother that I didn't even think about it. But now that the situation is more stable, maybe it's time to think about the future differently." "Is there someone special?" Michael blushed slightly. "There's Ashley from the store. We've worked together for 3 years, and she's always been a great supporter. During that whole difficult period, she never judged me. In fact, she even offered to lend me money when she found out about my mother's problems." Dorothy held her son's hand. "Ashley is a good girl. She was always kind to me when I went to visit him at the store." "Why don't you ask her out to dinner?" suggested Jennifer. I'm afraid of ruining our friendship. What if things don't work out and it gets awkward working together?" "Michael," said Dorothy, "after everything we've been through, are you still afraid to take a risk for something good?" Jennifer laughed. "Your mother is right. Sometimes it's worth taking a risk." A week later, Michael finally gathered the courage to ask Ashley out to dinner. To his surprise, she confessed that she had also had feelings for him for a long time, but didn't want to complicate things during the difficult period he was going through. "I've always admired how you took care of your mother," she said during dinner, "and how you protected all of us at the store. It's rare to find a man with such strong values." 6 months later, Michael and Ashley were engaged. Dorothy, fully recovered, had returned to work part-time at a local clinic and was radiant at the prospect of having a daughter-in-law. The assistance program had expanded to the entire chain and served as a model for other companies in the sector. Jennifer had been promoted to national director, but kept in close contact with all the stores where she had worked. One Saturday afternoon, she decided to pay a surprise visit to the store where it all began. She found Michael and Ashley working together, now as manager and assistant manager, with a harmony that was evident to any observer. "How are things around here?" she asked. "Better than ever," Michael replied. "Last month we approved 12 emergency loans. We helped with everything from medical treatments to urgent home repairs, and the repayment rate is 100%. "I'm happy to hear that. And how is Mrs. Thompson?" "She's great. She's back at work and is even thinking about taking a nursing refresher course. She says she feels young again." Ashley approached them. "Ms. Parker, can I say something?" "Of course." "When I learned the whole story, how you met Michael's mother, and how everything connected, I kept thinking about how strange life is. If you hadn't walked into the store that day, if Michael hadn't reacted the way he did with your card, none of this would have happened." Jennifer reflected on that. Truly, the whole sequence of events seemed almost impossible to happen by chance. "Ashley, I've learned that sometimes what seems like a coincidence is actually life, giving us the opportunity to set right things that were left unfinished. I had carried a debt of gratitude towards Mrs. Thompson for years. Life gave me the chance to repay it, and even create something positive in the process." "And we got the good part of the whole story," said Michael, smiling. That evening, Jennifer had dinner with Dorothy, Michael, and Ashley at a cozy restaurant in downtown New York City. As they talked and laughed, she watched these people she had learned to consider family. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "do you remember what you told me in the hospital when I wanted to give up on everything?" "I said many things, my dear. Which one specifically?" "You said that our life isn't defined by what happens to us, but by how we react to what happens to us." Dorothy smiled. "I did say that, and you are the living proof that I was right." "We all are," said Michael. "Every person at this table has been through difficult times but chose to react positively, and look where we ended up." Ashley raised her water glass. "A toast, then, to second chances, to unexpected reunions, and to the people who believe in us when we don't even believe in ourselves." "Perfect," said Jennifer, raising her glass as well, "and to the transformative power of forgiveness and gratitude." As they were saying goodbye at the restaurant door, Dorothy pulled Jennifer aside. "Jennifer, can I give you one more piece of motherly advice?" "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. You've done so much for others. Don't forget to do something for yourself, too. A woman like you deserves her own family, her own moments of personal happiness." Jennifer felt a tightness in her chest. In recent years, she had dedicated herself so much to work that she had truly neglected her personal life. "You're right. Maybe it's time to think about that. Make sure you do. Life is more beautiful when we have special people to share the victories with." 3 months later, during a business conference in Washington, D.C., Jennifer met Dr. Daniel Mitchell, a rehabilitation doctor who worked with patients with spinal cord injuries. The connection was immediate and natural. "It's incredible what you've done with that assistance program," he said during lunch. "As a doctor, I see every day how financial problems affect people's health. Having this kind of business support can literally save lives." "I learned firsthand what it feels like to be vulnerable," Jennifer replied. "I wanted to create something that would give people the dignity I wish I'd had during some difficult times in my life. Do you have plans to expand the concept to other areas?" "Actually, I've been thinking about working with hospitals and clinics, creating support programs for families of hospitalized patients." Daniel's eyes lit up. "That would be revolutionary. Financial anxiety is one of the biggest stress factors for families dealing with serious illnesses." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking about possibilities, but Jennifer realized she was enjoying not just Daniel's professional ideas, but his genuine passion for helping people. 6 months later, Daniel had moved to New York City and was working in partnership with Jennifer to develop the hospital support program. More importantly, they were building something together in their personal lives as well. On the first anniversary of the assistance program, the company organized a big celebration. More than 200 families had been helped, and the results continued to be impressive. During the ceremony, Jennifer was called to the stage to receive an award from the New York City Mayor's Office for Business Social Innovation. "This award isn't mine," she said into the microphone. "It belongs to all the people who had the courage to believe that problems can turn into solutions. It belongs to Dorothy, who taught me that doing the right thing is worth it. It belongs to Michael, who turned a mistake into an opportunity to help others. It belongs to all the employees who embraced this program and made it work." In the audience, she could see familiar faces. Ashley, now married to Michael and pregnant with their first child. Dorothy, vibrant and healthy, working as a consultant in hospital humanization. Daniel, her partner both at work and in life, and dozens of employees whose lives had been touched by the program. "When I walked into that store a year ago," she continued, "I thought I was just shopping. I didn't know I was about to find a family I didn't even know I was looking for." After the ceremony, during the party, Michael approached Jennifer. "Ms. Jennifer, Ashley and I wanted to ask you something." "Go ahead." "When the baby is born, we'd like you to be the godmother. Not just for everything you've done for us, but because you're truly part of our family now." Jennifer felt tears form in her eyes. "It would be an honor, but only if Dorothy agrees to be the honorary grandmother." Dorothy, who was listening to the conversation nearby, laughed joyfully. "I already consider myself this baby's grandmother, and the great-grandmother of all the children you have in the future." she said, looking meaningfully at Jennifer and Daniel. End of story. So, what did you think of this story of transformation and second chances? Do you believe Jennifer made the right decisions by helping Michael, even after discovering he had taken money from the company? How would you act in a similar situation? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. We love reading your thoughts. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories that show how forgiveness and gratitude can transform lives.